And welcome once again to another episode of Stu Him Productions Presents
J&M Solve the World. I am James.
And I am Matt, and tonight we are doing something a little special. We are going to name a supergroup of our choice. But that supergroup all has to be dead. And you've got to give a reason why you chose so-and-so over so-and-so. And somebody that died and came back does not count. They have to be 6 feet under or Ash. And I'm not talking Bruce Campbell.
Oh, man, who's going to be like bass guitarist?
All right. So tonight, returning, we have Arron. We have Cody. And James will be giving the supergroups. But earlier tonight, we did a little Rochambeau, and Cody lost, so he gets to go first.
For my supergroup?
Yeah, talk into the microphone.
For my supergroup?
Yes.
Okay. Ready whenever?
And go.
All right. So, I chose my singer at Dio.
Oh, you motherfucker.
Hey, you'll be fine. And my lead guitarist is...
Okay, hang on. Why did you choose Dio?
I don't have a reason why I chose anybody over anybody. I'll bring out my reason after I say everybody.
Okay.
My lead guitarist is Eddie Van Halen.
Mm-hmm.
My bassist would be Lemmy from Motorhead.
Okay.
My drummer is Taylor Hawkins from Foo Fighters.
Mm-hmm.
And then my little twist, Beethoven on piano.
Oh,
Or keys.
okay. I mean, he did get down in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yes, he
I
did.
kind of want to see Beethoven on a guitar.
That would go hard.
Oh, fuck.
Okay, he can
Besides,
play piano or
Van
guitar.
Halen fucking shredding.
Oh, man.
Yes. Thank you
Anyway,
for that, Aaron.
Okay, Cody, why did you choose the people that you chose?
So, personally, everybody that I looked at is wonderful. They're
Mhm.
all good.
Okay.
But I think this would just go unbelievably hard. They could probably make a very good selling album out of this if they were all in the same time period and somehow created a band together.
Okay.
And we're still alive.
That too.
Okay. Well, I'll accept it. And I mean, it's all very good. You've got a great kind of eclectic there. I will say the Beethoven was a fucking twist,
I told
Right.
you.
especially because the guy is deaf.
Yeah, bro.
But he still made some great music.
Oh yeah, he did. Yes, he did. I mean, anything that you'd like to add on that, James?
Well, the addition of Beethoven there, if you think about it, classical music was kind of the metal of its day
Yeah.
because they played as hard and loud as what they had
Right.
to play with.
Right.
Of course, they were playing in amphitheaters and stuff.
Mhm.
But,
They
yeah,
had
they
speakers or shit. They had to play loud and they had to play
Right.
fast.
Okay.
Exactly.
You need to move closer to the microphone.
Aight.
I mean, you can raise that microphone up.
Yeah.
No, you gotta. No. There you go. Yeah. Oh my God! Look at there.
Whoa.
Now,
Happy to see you, Aaron.
now you can get up on that microphone.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because when you're all the way back here and you've got a little boy voice, you
Yeah,
can't
then
really
they
hear.
can hear shit and I'm not adding
Yeah.
anything.
Exactly.
But, you look at, and I didn't really put this together, and it's stupid until Metallica done their symphony album.
Mm-hmm.
Their first symphony album with the
Yeah,
the
S&M.
San Francisco Philharmonic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going, how's that going to work? But it's like, shit, classical and metal,
Right.
just two different eras.
Right.
It works together. So I really like that pick. Lemmy was not known really for his bass playing.
No,
He wasn't a Geddy Lee
no,
type bass player and everything, but I'm sure he could hold a rhythm.
right, and he was an influenceable. He was such an
influential.
Yes, thank you.
Right.
Bass player, and he was a guitar player when he first joined Hawkwind, and he was a guitar tech for Hendrix.
Right.
And being a guitar tech for Hendrix, he pretty much said, "I'm going to play bass."
Yeah. No shit.
But if you listen, Lemmy played like he was playing a guitar,
Right.
and he played out of a Marshall before Marshall did bass amps, and
Right.
they even now still they don't really do bass amps.
Right. It was a Marshall guitar stack
Yes,
that he was playing his bass through.
right, and
Which
it
I'm
was affectionately known
sure-
as Murder One, and now they have the Lemmy signature Murder One that Marshall made for him.
He probably went through a lot of speakers.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Taylor Hawkins, excellent drummer.
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's coming from, one of the greatest drummers of all time from Dave Grohl.
Right.
And I mean, the first Foo Fighters album, Dave Grohl played everything. But then
Right.
he got the band and,
Kind of like Mammoth.
right,
Yeah.
9 Inch Nails,
Right.
but,
But didn't, just to go totally off
Yeah.
subject on 9 Inch Nails, didn't Trent Reznor record everything himself and
Yes.
then hired a band on every tour?
yes,
Or is it like with Foo Fighters, they done that the first time,
yes,
but then they hired the band, but now they're all contributors.
right.
And I think Mammoth is the same way.
Yes, yeah. The first Mammoth album, Wolfie did everything,
Right.
and then the second Mammoth album is when he had the band together. And
They got a second album out?
yes, that's
Really?
what they're on tour for now.
Really?
Yeah,
Because I've
And
only
it's-
been able to find the first one on
yeah.
Amazon.
The second album, well, the first video off the second album shows the way that he got the band.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Where he fires himself.
Yeah.
Fires all the
Yeah.
of himself. Yeah, okay. Cool.
yeah. The Eddie Van Halen part, I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
What other?
Dio.
No, what other? It was just Eddie on guitar.
Yeah. I don't
Okay.
think anybody else.
And I mean, you can't go wrong with Dio.
No.
Now Dio was known for his harmonies.
Right.
He's got an amazing voice. He could hit those fucking highs and he can hit those lows, but there was no,
Yeah.
I think the Mob Rules Black Sabbath album, I thought he was a great replacement for Ozzy,
Right.
but
I mean,
his-
Ozzy could have been mine, but he's not dead yet.
correct.
Well, wait a minute.
He's close enough.
Yeah. But I mean, all great picks.
Yep.
It would be very interesting.
It'd be an interesting sound.
Yes, I totally agree.
You get the Eddie Van Halen writing, the Taylor Hawkins writing, the
Yeah.
Lemmy writing, and you blend that together. That would be interesting.
And Lemmy was a very smart man.
Yeah.
And I mean, you get Dio in on that
Oh, yeah.
because, Lemmy had that signature sound for his bass and his vocals.
Right.
And, a lot of people claimed that Motorhead was a fucking a metal band, but Lemmy swore until his dying day that Motorhead was just a rock and roll band.
Right.
We are Motorhead and we play rock and roll.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. All right, Arron.
All right, well, so my lead vocalist for this one was Dio, but of course Cody didn't choose that until after I mentioned it at work.
You'll be okay.
Asshole.
You can have
all right.
doubles.
Okay, move closer to the microphone.
All right,
There we go.
but I chose Dio because, as you mentioned before, he can hit those high notes. That's some of my favorite bands, like Journey, Boston. My mind's going blank. I probably had too much to drink earlier.
No.
Not as bad as last night.
Not yet.
Not yet. But I love his voice. Oh, personally, one of my favorite bands was called Bloodgood, and it's not a great band, but their lead vocalist, whose name I, for the life of me, can't remember, hits a lot of those high notes, and Dio's voice just reminded me a lot of him.
Okay.
And I'd choose him, except he's still alive.
Yeah.
But that's what I chose for my lead vocalist. The next two are pretty obvious picks. We got Dimebag Darrell for lead guitarist,
Mm-hmm.
and Cliff Burton for bass.
Okay.
And then
Well, hang on.
No.
Why choose Dime over Eddie or Randy or Stevie Ray or Jeff Beck or any of those guys?
Well, when I was trying to learn a bit about this list so I could have some idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I actually went through a bunch of lead guitarists and stuff, just going through YouTube videos.
Okay.
Just going through albums, and Dimebag just ended up being my favorite.
Okay.
And Cliff Burton, that man can play a bass like nobody else I've ever seen. It's
Okay.
Sometimes he makes it sound like an electric guitar somehow.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It was incredible.
Well,
On the first album,
okay, hang on. I'm sorry, not to cut you off, and I'm cutting myself off. Please continue with your list, and then we'll give our critiques.
The last guy on my list, he's died fairly recently, within the last 10, 15 years or so. Jimmy the Revenant, or the Rev, from Avenged Sevenfold, is the drummer.
Okay.
I've loved that band for years, but especially after the song Unholy Confessions, the drum plays a massive part in that song. Like, you can, if there's audio out there of just the drums from that. It's fast paced, it's complicated, and I fell in love with it.
Okay.
I think he'd be a great drummer. I think he could work with anything that they write.
So why the Rev, in that vein, why the Rev over Joey Jordison?
Just because that's what I grew up with. It was Avenged Sevenfold.
Okay. Orion. Like, if you listen to the Master of Puppets album, and Orion, because when we were growing up, we didn't have the internet, and you had to read about stuff after it happened. So getting a Hit Parader or a Circus Magazine or Raw or
Guitar World,
or anything like that, you hear the middle part of Orion, you automatically think, well, that's a guitar. But it's actually Cliff playing bass. And the fact that he did it with his fingers and not with a pick was something just phenomenal.
Superhuman.
He had a love affair with the wah pedal. He used his wah a lot. And,
and he wasn't afraid to add the distortion and everything to the bass.
No.
If there's a track on Kill 'Em All called Anesthesia Pulling Teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Cliff's bass solo. In fact, that's how it starts.
Yeah.
It's like
Bass solo, take one. Yeah. And a lot of guitar players can play it. And not a lot of bass players can play it perfectly.
Right.
Newstead couldn't do it just because Newstead plays with a pick.
Right. There's
And
a difference in sound and feel.
Yes.
Using the fingers as opposed to picking it.
Yeah.
And, just like Orion. Metallica hasn't played Orion since Cliff died.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And Through the Never, the Metallica movie, was like the first time that they'd played it. And Rob fucking killed it.
Yeah.
And I'm not taking anything away from Newstead, because Newstead hung in there longer than most people should with the amount of shit. And James and Lars have admitted it to this day.
Yeah.
They gave him so much fucking shit for no reason at all.
Well,
He was the new guy.
it's like Kirk said. They were mourning Cliff's death because Cliff died. You know how Cliff died?
Was that?
It was a rollover,
It was
wasn't
the bus accident,
They
right?
were
He got crushed by the bus.
they were on tour in Europe. They hit a patchy spot of ice. Fucking
Yeah.
above flipped over, and everybody screaming and everything. And they all get out and they're like, "What the fuck's going on?"
He went out the window and got crushed by the
No.
bus.
through the escape hatch on the top of the bus. He got thrown out of it because he was on a top bunk, and for the longest,
the bus ended up on top of him.
Right, the bus flipped completely over, and the bus driver had said black ice, and Hetfield in tighty whities and socks ran like a mile back down the road and could not find the black ice, and he was fucking just pissed. Kirk blamed himself because they did the shortest straw.
Shortest straw.
Shortest straw.
Draw cards.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. It was
Cliff
yeah.
drew the ace of spades. He's like, I want your bunk, Kirk.
And Kirk slept on the top bunk. And I mean, Cliff chose it, and those in Copenhagen, Denmark in 1986 were the last ones to see Cliff Burton play with Metallica.
Damn. It's got to be surreal.
It was, because at the time, Metallica was never mentioned on MTV because they didn't have a video. They never talked about it. And then it was just like the MTV News.
Yeah.
Metallica's bass player, Cliff Burton, dies in a freak bus accident. And it's just like, what? So, all in all, I think you've got a pretty strong lineup. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a Avenged Sevenfold fan.
That's fair.
It's not because of their music. It's because of M. Shadow's vocals. I hate with a passion whiny vocals.
I guess I can see where you're coming from.
I can't do the whiny vocals.
How do you feel about Post after him fucking up his throat and he had to change things up?
I haven't listened.
No, it's
Let
a little different.
Let me tell you what. If I am listening to satellite radio, regardless of what channel it is, and Avenged Sevenfold comes on, I immediately change the fucking channel. I could be in the middle of a workout fucking set listening to satellite radio. I will fucking rack the weights and change the fucking, or I will stand there with the weights up on my shoulder, especially if I'm doing squats. I will stop with the weights on my shoulder, and I have the ability on my watch, and I will move that fucking track.
I respect the commitment.
I
don't agree. I like it. I like Avenged Sevenfold.
I did, but then it got to be too much. Like the first album, it was like, yeah, okay. But then, it's like everybody said about AC/DC. Every album sounds the same. Well, it doesn't, but whatever. It just got to be too much for me. Just for me. And that's my opinion. I'm just the M of the J&M. So.
Which song do you hate the most? Like, do you have one from what you've listened to? Do you have one you hate the most?
Beast and the Harlot.
Okay, I get it. I've listened to that one several times.
It's along, like we had talked before, Zeppelin. They only played 3 songs on the radio over and over and over again. Yeah. And that song plays a lot. And I did a deep dive because one of my guys in the Army was an Avenged Sevenfold fan. So I got the music from him, and I'm listening, and I'm like, okay, yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, it's the same, I gave Black Veil Bride the benefit. I'm like, okay, I'm going to listen to these guys. They look like a bunch of fucking posers. Because back in the day when we were growing up, nobody had tattoos until they had like that 3rd platinum album. And then they started getting tattoos. Motley Crue didn't have like serious tattoos until Girls. Yeah. James Hetfield from Metallica. Cliff Burton was the only one that had a tattoo forever.
Right.
And it was the Misfit skull. And after Cliff passed, nobody had tattoos in that band. Ozzy was the big, the heavily tattooed one.
Yeah.
And then Kerry King.
That heavily tattooed.
No. I mean, if looking at Ozzy now compared to half of the bands out there, he's barely tattooed.
Ozzy's got a couple flash arts put on.
Yeah, but it's what he's known for now.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's just weird. Ron Young from the band Little Caesar, they were doing a video, and he had both arms sleeved, and it connected to a complete back piece.
That's cool.
And he was like, you know, look at me. I'm not going to put on a suit and tie and go to Wall Street. It's just not going to happen. So, I mean, you know, he made that commitment, but he was one of those Hollywood Sunset Strip guys.
So what does that have to do with Black Veil Brides? Back to the point.
Yeah, they're just you know, they were young. I'm sorry. Yeah, they were a young band, and they were just heavily tattooed, and it was like, who are these guys?
Yeah.
And it's like,
But you got to realize in the 80s, when what we're talking about with bands not getting heavily tattooed till their third album or whatever, it's a different time.
right,
You didn't, I mean, back in the 80s, you didn't see anybody walking around in your town
right.
that was heavily tattooed.
Oh, right.
You might see an ex-Army guy or something with mom on his fucking
Yeah.
shoulder or whatever, you know.
I mean, how many behind the musics did we see that, you know, bands had dissolved and a guy had went and became a fucking real estate agent?
Right. Oh, yeah. Or start playing country music.
Oh, fuck.
Fuck it. No.
Okay, so again, another good list. You put in some research on it. That is amazing. And finally, for this episode, the final supergroup, I give it to the man, James.
Okay.
What position are you going to start in?
I want to start with the drums.
Okay.
People are probably going to wonder, well, why didn't you pick Vinny? Why didn't you pick da-da-da?
Yeah.
I'm going to go Taylor Hawkins,
Okay.
and I'll explain why.
Okay.
On the list. Bass, Cliff Burton.
Okay.
Just because, honestly, I couldn't think of a lot of great bass players that I like that have
Right,
passed,
right,
you know.
right, yeah.
'Cause bass players don't get the acclaim
Right.
of guitar players. I mean, I can think of 20 country guitar players. I can't think of one country bass player.
Right.
You know, unless I research, unless I go on Google the machine.
Right. And because they've always been in the background.
But Cliff, I mean, is just fucking phenomenal.
Right.
My guitarist,
Mm-hmm.
Randy Rhoads.
Okay.
A lot of people go, why didn't you pick Dime? Why did you pick it? Here again, just got to fit in with the motif. My lead singer, Lane Staley from Alice in Chains.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay.
And on the way up here, I had it on Amazon. It was just playing. I heard an Alice in Chains song, and I'm like going, yeah, that's why I picked him.
Yeah.
Because I think that group of guys,
Oh, yeah.
you get the classical background of Randy Rhoads,
Mm-hmm.
the songwriting of Cliff Burton,
Mm-hmm.
Lane Staley. I mean, probably the death of metal in the early 90s, you know, just because, you know, he was grunge, but they were grunge, but they weren't grunge.
Right.
They were on a tour with Metallica. And
Well,
Who
Alice
was
in
it?
Chains were on the Clash of the Titans tour
that's it, yeah.
with Megadeth and Slayer.
Right, that's it.
Yeah.
But, you know, and then you got fucking Taylor Hawkins,
Yeah.
Foo Fighters, the grunge from Dave Grohl.
Yeah.
And, you know,
He
and,
played-
and I would love to just to see how that all fit together.
Right. And he
you
played
know?
drums for Alanis Morissette.
Right,
That's where he got fucking recruited by Dave Grohl.
yeah,
He was on tour with Alanis Morissette.
right.
You know,
but I think you get that mix of,
oh, yeah.
to me, you get that mix of the grunge, the fucking just nasty rock and the thrash of
Yeah.
Cliff, and
Yeah.
I would love to see how that would have blended together.
Well, and, you know, one of the interviews, and this was an early interview because it was Cliff and Dave Mustaine, and they were asking about influences. and Cliff had mentioned REM.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was back in like 80.
Right.
So, I mean, and you see where REM, like, where they, direction they went into.
Yeah.
And Taylor Hawkins, there was a small piece on YouTube, and they were talking about the importance of Ringo Starr from the Beatles, which a lot of people don't talk about.
Right.
But it's the way
it's
that
all about
he,
John and
Paul,
yeah.
with Ringo, it was a jazz sort of influence, and Taylor loved that. And if you haven't seen the movie Studio 666, you definitely got to check it out, because Taylor Hawkins plays an amazing Taylor Hawkins.
Plays an amazing Taylor Hawkins.
Yeah. I mean, it was completely great. And again, I've got to give it up, because honestly, I didn't even think about Lane Staley.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking for myself, which on the next episode, I will give my choice, my picks. But I was thinking more bigger and everything like that. I didn't want to go with some of the more thought-provoking. But Lane, I mean,
I think with that group of guys, it would just be
and Taylor's got an amazing voice,
right.
Because he would do when they would be in concert, and Dave would get on the drum kit, and Taylor would sing Queen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he was a huge Eddie Van Halen fan.
Yeah.
As he should be.
Well, his shorts.
Well, see,
he always wore the red
I was
striped shorts.
I was conflicted whether to go. I mean, Dime would have worked in that scenario.
Right.
I was conflicted with Eddie Van Halen and Randy Rhoads, but I'm thinking, Randy, he had that classical training.
Right.
And if you remember on the first Ozzy album where he does that little guitar solo.
D.
Where he's like, ding, diddly, messes up, and then he does it. But then he does it all the way through there. And I was thinking with that, he was with fucking Ozzy.
Right.
And that's, I just thought it fit.
Right.
With Lane and
right.
Cliff
and
everything.
And Ozzy was in a dark spot when he got fired, or when he left Black Sabbath, however you want to look at it.
Well, basically, between
Yes.
Randy and Sharon,
yes,
saved Ozzy's life.
But when Randy walked into the studio and played the first thing for Ozzy, it's like he immediately perked up and said, "You are fucking it."
Right.
And I mean, this coming from a guy who wrote songs with fucking Tony Iommi.
Right.
The riff godfather of all time. So I mean that says enough right there.
Ozzy's probably going, you can play 3 notes per string?
Yeah.
Because Tony played a lot of arpeggios.
Right.
But then it went back when he got Zach. Zach's actually our arpeggio master.
Right. And when the show Ozzy and Jack Travel the World, they went to the National Archives, and they pulled the tapes from the Blizzard of Oz album, and they played Randy's solos for Ozzy for the first time since they recorded them, and it was just Randy's solos, nothing else. And Ozzy was pretty much brought to fucking tears because it was just that fucking beautiful. And there was rumors in the free press rags that we read that Sharon and Randy had this fucking love affair or whatever. Right. No. Sharon has loved Ozzy since the day she met him. She loved him so much, and she was tired of him cheating on her so much that during the No More Tours tour, she told Ozzy that he had AIDS, so he would stop fucking around on her.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Did it work?
Yeah.
I guess good for her.
Well, and the bad thing about it, you got to think of Randy Rhoads in the early 80s
Oh,
when
he
joined
was
Ozzy.
He was beautiful.
He was a pretty man.
Yeah.
I mean, he was effeminate. He was a little guy.
Yeah.
He could get any pussy he wanted.
Yeah.
You remember Sharon in the early 80s?
Yeah.
Wasn't that attractive?
No.
Why would he be doing that?
Right.
Just saying.
I mean,
You look at her now as a 70-some-year-old woman, she don't look too bad. She's had a lot of work done.
well, she also.
But back in the early 80s, she was pretty chubby.
Yeah.
She was his manager.
Yeah. And it was. What are you doing over there?
Fucking, this thing moved. I'm trying to fix it.
Well, you got to tighten them at the same time.
Oh, you do?
It's like nipples.
Okay.
Tune in Tokyo.
All these things on.
Nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
Weak, no.
So, okay, we have 3 amazing groups. And now I'm going to do something that we haven't even talked about.
Oh,
And
goddamn. You going off script?
yes, and then James
Please go.
James will be able to do this on the next podcast when we have 2 more lists, or actually 3, because mine will be in there. So I'm going to take a little bit from everybody's, and with just those 3, I am going to make my own group.
Oh shit.
Okay. So on vocals, I'm going Lane Staley. Just because if you listen to the song Wood, if you listen to the song Rooster, the emotion in it, Dio's good, but a lot of Dio's lyrics
Man in the
were
box.
magical.
Oh yeah.
And yes,
very much famous.
Jerry Cantrell did write a lot of the lyrics because he wrote Rooster, because that was a story about his dad. On bass, I'm going Lemmy Kilminster, because Lemmy, his playing, it broke through the mold. And his vocaling style, along with his bass playing, it's very signature and it's very heavy. But he also had some of those songs with Ozzy where it was to where he was more talking and it was the low, gravelly sort of tone. And it's like, that's fucking badass. Guitar, I am going to go Eddie Van Halen. Because Eddie, he had that style all on its own. He was able to take a little bit of that classical style, but also that Mediterranean.
He invented finger picking, right?
He didn't invent it.
He didn't invent it.
He was the one that actually would play it longer than just a beep, 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 beep. Because a lot of guitar players were doing that, but Eddie was like going to town with it.
What Eddie first started doing that and performing it live on the Sunset Strip and everything, his band members or their manager was like, when you do that shit, turn your back to the crowd. We don't want anybody seeing what you're doing.
Right.
Because he was basically taking his left hand and taking the nut of the guitar, which is where your strings go up here, and he would move that up and down while tapping
Yeah.
here.
Harmonizing.
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah. And then
also adding in the 3 and 4 finger taps
Yeah.
and everything, and,
Yeah.
and nobody was doing that to that proficiency at that
right.
time.
You may hear a little dee-dee-dee-dee
But yeah,
or a dee-dee-dee.
well, I just watched the video on that, and he was talking about that. He said where he started to learn how to do it, he's like, you could see, God damn it, who was it he's talking about? Pete Townsend or somebody?
Okay.
And he's got his hand up in the air, and he's going, yeah. Well, that's a hammer on.
Right.
Hammer on, pull off, hammer on, pull off, hammer
Right.
on, pull off, hammer on. He's like, he's watching that going, what if I do this?
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
so he didn't invent it, but yeah, he
Yeah.
perfected it.
Doesn't Wolfie do it too?
Oh,
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Sure.
Wolfie said his dad was the worst guitar player ever, or
The
the
guitar teacher. Yeah.
ever, because he's like, well, Okay, son, here's how you do this. He's like, fuck you, Dad. What the fuck?
Yeah.
You know?
Not to get off topic a little bit, but there is a video, and you guys owe it to yourselves to find it on YouTube. Wolfgang Van Halen plays Eruption on the Frankenstrat in the 5150 studio. It's like a 50-second.
Didn't he do it at the Taylor Hawkins show?
Yeah, but not on the Frankenstrat.
Right.
He was playing the Wolfgang.
Right.
It's not his signature, but it's the name of the guitar that his dad named after him. Because Wolfgang was everything to his dad. Yeah. And of course, on drums, I mean, I've got no choice but Taylor Hawkins. But again, like I had mentioned before,
Well, you got another choice.
Oh,
Yeah, I get it.
Taylor Hawkins. He had a jazz influence like a Buddy Rich, but he was able to make it work with Dave Grohl, and with Dave Grohl being one of the better drummers to come out of the 90s.
Out of the grunge era.
Well, yeah.
Out of the grunge era. I mean, Nirvana.
Right.
Shout out.
Yes. But to have Dave Grohl say, okay, man, you're good. You know, I am going to allow you to write the drums on this album. And Taylor Hawkins said that was the hardest thing he ever did. That first Foo Fighters album where they all wrote together. He's like, major anxiety, fucking panic attacks, because he's about to lay down drum tracks for Dave fucking Grohl. So, there we go, folks. We have just listed the first half of the supergroups from our opinions. If you agree or disagree, feel free to leave us a comment in the comment section. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple or Amazon or anywhere else, go to YouTube. J&M Solve the World, and follow us there, because the videos, we post the videos to each one of our podcasts, and especially even if it's an After Dark, because you never know what's going to pop up in the photos in the After Dark segment. But
as you can still tell, we are still in St. Louis.
Yes, we are. And the merch, the J&M Solve the World merchandise, is available. If you would like a shirt, I have a hat, a visor, or anything like that, let us know. Send us a message. You can find us on, YouTube, Spotify. You can find me on Snapchat, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Tumblr, on Thread, on Reddit.
I think he's on OnlyFans too.
Only my butthole.
Only your butthole? Okay.
Yeah.
Him and Andy's.
No, it's just my butthole. And then you can also, you can find James on Facebook, James Wesley Stewart.
Yep.
You can find me on Facebook. It's Matt Hembry. And you'll have to go down and you'll have to look through it and everything, because there are several Matt Hembrys, and I'm not putting my full fucking name out there. But until next time.
Put my full name out there. What the fuck?
Well, because that's your screen name.
Yeah.
But
Because if I'd have just put James Stewart, there's a million.
yeah, I know.
I Googled my name one time. I was like, Jesus Christ.
When we did the obituary for my mom, and it automatically got ran in the paper in Clarksville, Tennessee. And there's another Matthew Hembry in Clarksville, Tennessee. So in the obituary, I had them put Matthew D. Hembry.
Right.
I don't know how many calls I got when I lived in Clarksville for this other dude owing fucking money. And I'm like, no, that ain't me, bro. But until next time, you have just watched another episode of Stu Him Productions Presents.
JDM, solve the world. I am James.
And I am Matt. And on behalf of Arron and Cody, you keep one fist in the gold, one foot in the gutter, and we will be seeing you.
Peace.